Good evening. In this episode, I will talk about the ISA model. What is ISA model? It is in-flight safety assurance model. This is the conceptual framework of my PhD dissertation. Just to say here that I finished my PhD degree in educational technology from USM, University Sains, Malaysia, and before that I had 13 years of experience as a flight attendant at Royal Jordanian Airlines. Flight attendant safety on board is the topic of my PhD dissertation. This model, ISA model, explains all the stages that the flight attendant goes through in his career as a flight attendant. The first stage in ISA model is basic safety training. In the basic safety training, the flight attendant goes through an intensive theoretical and practical training on topics of safety and service, in addition to first aid topics. This stage lasts approximately for 3 months. Now the flight attendant is ready and certified to operate a flight. Here we move to the next stage, a pre-flight briefing. A pre-flight briefing is a half-an-hour meeting conducted by the in-flight supervisor with the captain, the commander of the flight, and the flight attendants. Here the flight attendants are asked a number of questions by the supervisor to assess their safety knowledge. If a flight attendant is not able to answer, he or she will be offloaded from the flight and reported to be weak in emergency. The next stage, I call it in-flight preparedness, where the flight attendant should be at full alert mood. Here the flight attendant is expected to consolidate the knowledge and the skills that he or she has acquired during the basic safety training. But the truth is that the flight attendant does service only. He or she rarely encounters any emergency situation to practice safety. After this stage, the flight attendant is expected to have developed an expert flight safety schema. But does this what really happens? Now we go back to the previous stage. The flight attendant rarely encounters any emergency situation on board. Most, if not all of his performance is service. We note here that in a typical airline, the flight attendant goes through this loop, the flight duty loop, which is the pre-flight briefing, the expert flight safety schema, and the in-flight preparedness, a minimum of 10 flights every month. In a calendar year, he would have gone approximately 120 times throughout this loop. We add here that the flight attendant should carry approximately a 1,000-page safety manual and should keep reading this text-based manual to keep his knowledge and skills up to the standard and be able to solve any emergency situation that might arise on board. But an emergency situation that might enhance flight safety schema rarely happens. We add here the in-flight safety management loop that follows up reports and takes actions that are circulated to in-flight supervisors to inform their crew in the upcoming pre-flight briefing. We note here that the flight attendant might encounter emergency experience through his career. My experience for 13 years, I have had slight emergency experience, which slightly contributes to improving flight safety schema. Now, at the end of the year, flight attendants go through refresher training. The refresher training is an 8-hour training and with the drills conducted once every year. It has 2 objectives. The first one is refreshing flight attendants' safety knowledge and skills through PowerPoint presentations and practical drills, such as ditching, evacuation, and firefighting. The second objective is certification from the Civil Aviation Authority to enable flight attendants to go through the next pre-flight briefings for the upcoming year. The refresher training is expected to further enhance flight safety schema. I call this loop the certification loop. Now the big question is, are the flight attendants ready and capable to solve any emergency situation that might arise on board? They got their basic safety training only once in a lifetime, maybe before a few years or more. They have their text-based safety manual that they must memorize by heart. At the end of the year, they have a 1-day refresher training. Who can answer this big question? Again, are flight attendants ready and capable to solve any emergency situation that might arise on board? To be objective, we should conduct research and collect data from reliable sources to get the answer. This will be the topic of our next episode. Thank you.